Hi, this is Rick Jacobs of Law Enforcement Training and Education Consultants, otherwise known as LETNEC, on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. As many of you know, or some of you at least, I have a training evaluation program where I attend courses, evaluate them using a rubric that I created, and then publicly publish the results of that rubric. I think it's important that if I'm going to do this with other people's training, that I also publicly evaluate my own training. Now, granted, I don't have to go through the rubric of it because I created it. I make sure that all my training matches that rubric. I do think it's important that I am completely transparent on the quality of the courses I deliver and some of the things that were discussed in the comments and end of course survey. One of my core beliefs is that as an instructor, I need to be humble and I need to be vulnerable. But that doesn't mean that I break down in tears sharing my darkest, quietest moments. It means that I expose and make it clear the problems, the issues, or the hardships that I'm having in either creating the course or delivering the course for that week. This basic course that I delivered is something I've already designed. I already had created, but I had it created in a neutral or general way so it would fit with pretty much any state's requirements. However, TCOLE has what's called an instructor resource guide that has mandated material and mandated activities that need to be included in the course. Now, they claim that the IRG is not a lesson plan, but they expect people to create a lesson plan from it. So, over the last 6 months, I've worked on integrating TCOLE information into my Law Enforcement Instructor Basic class. The thing is that I was going along quite well, but in the meantime, I had published the book, Creating Training for Law Enforcement. And then on December 3rd, while I was in Berlin, Germany, getting ready to present in a conference, I realized I was doing it all wrong. The course was a mess. I didn't like how it was being structured. I didn't like the format of it, and I had to restart from scratch. Now, I've delivered this basic instructor course before, but because I'm adding TCOLE information to it, it was worthy of a first validation. Now, this is something I've talked about, that I talk about in the book, and it's something I've talked at length about with other people, is that you need to validate your courses to make sure that they are delivering the content, the information, and are timed the way you plan. Overwhelmingly, a lot of our training is based on estimations and assumptions. I've done my best at trying to eliminate as many assumptions and estimations as possible, but when I deliver a course, I make it very clear this is the first iteration of the course, so it is a first validation course. And this is what I announced to the class on day one in the first half hour of introducing the course. I also, at the beginning of class, informed the class of 12 that this course had been completely redesigned and being restructured last Wednesday. Now, some of y'all might think that that's a dangerous thing to do, to plant the seeds of doubt in your class or in your participants, but I believe that they need to understand that this is the first iteration. It's going to be clunky, it might be a little janky, and I'm still working out some of the issues. However, you accomplish this by making them a part of the process. I made it very clear to them that I wanted their honest feedback. I wanted them to tell me if they felt they were stressed, if they had issues with the content and material, and I made it very clear that I considered them to be a partner in fixing this course the way I had designed it. I think on the whole, it went very well. The course went as well as it could for a first iteration. There are some things I need to fix, and I'm being completely honest and upfront that I invited the participants of this class to contribute what they think and how they would think it would operate better. So that being said, would I do this exact same course the exact same way the next time? Absolutely not. I made it very clear to them that there were things that I would do differently. I made it very clear that the next course will be different from the course that they got. The content will remain the same. The course will remain the same. It's how I structure it and how I present the material, but also things that I added to the course that was a bridge too far, I will remove and be okay with it because anything that I remove from the presentation is included in my book, is included in my participant guide, which is the book. This is one of the primary reasons that I make a strong recommendation that your participant guides be like a textbook, that it's narrative format. You provide all the activities, discussion questions, and notes that you would normally have in your instructor guide in the participant guide, but in a different format. So my activities in my instructor guide are detailed with a goal, with instructions, with criteria, and various other things, answers if it's question related activities. And then in the participant guide, they get the same activity with line notes, with instructions and line notes, so that they can keep track and record the information, the epiphanies, or the ideas that they have. The other thing I tell my participants right up front is this is going to be a very tough course. I tell them that past participants at the end of the course will be smelling colors, will be seeing sounds, their brains will be stretched and bent, and they will be exhausted because they will do a lot of work. Now, a lot of instructors make the course very easy for them, give them the answers to a 10-question multiple choice quiz. My courses are all work. They have to build things, they have to create things, and they have to perform in my courses. Because my courses aren't about the results, getting the certificate. It's about making sure that they can perform upon completion of the course, but also perform when they're not in the course and they're out in the real world doing their job. So as a part of this video, I'm going to post the overall ratings for everything, as well as the comments that were provided as part of the end of course survey that TTPOA provides for all courses. My participants also know that they'll be receiving an additional end of course survey from me based on the performance-focused learner surveys written by Will Thalheimer, which is recommended in the book as well. There's a very big difference between the two surveys. My survey has no Likert scales, which is the 1 to 10 rating, and it's all questions that gets actual, actionable information. I will say this, absolutely, all the commentary, all the criticism of my course was 100% spot on, but it was also discussed in class with the participants, getting their feedback. I know that the material was tough. It was tougher than it needed to be because I was rushing to complete a course that I wanted to make sure was robust and accomplished everything that TCOLE required, but also raised the bar, because TCOLE's courses are the minimum standard, which is fine. We need to have minimum standards, but that doesn't mean I have to train to the minimum standard. And by Texas Commission on Law Enforcement providing an instructor resource guide, they say this is what minimum has to be in your course, but I can raise the standard to whatever I want it to be. So I did raise the standard to what I would expect people to be able to accomplish once they're in their job. Now, I totally believe that most instructor courses spend way too little time on creating courseware, which gives the false impression that it doesn't take a lot of time to create courses once they're out in the real world. Instead, my courses still has a lot of presentation and covers presentation skills, but presentation skills are something that you develop over time. It doesn't matter how well you perform in a classroom in your instructor certification course. It matters how you perform once you get out of it in front of strangers, in front of other people where you don't have that safe place to fail like you should have in a basic instructor course. Now, I'm not going to lengthen this video by reading all of the different ratings that I got. Most of them were over 9 or at 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. There were a couple. There was one was the material presented in logical order. I got an 8.64, which was not the lowest, but the second lowest score that I got. On a Likert scale, what does that tell you? 8.64 versus a 9.18 on something else. It doesn't really tell you a lot. It just means that they were uncomfortable with it. So my performance-focused learner survey-based end-of-course survey that I'll be sending out will actually get to the meat of why the score is lower. Instead of just giving me an 8.64, it'll give me information about why they feel that the material was not presented in a logical order to the same standard as the rest of it. Most instructors would feel like they were perfectly fine with an 8.64. I'm not. Because I also identified, and we talked about in class, that the material had problems. And I totally agree with them. So not only do I already have solutions for the next course, but the people in the class felt as a part of it. They felt like they were part of the solution, and they got to experience what being a real instructor and what a real course designer or instructional designer is really all about. It's about taking feedback, it's about having honest conversations, and it's about contributing to your peers. The lowest rating I got was an 8.27. Did the instructor present the information in a clear and understandable way? And I totally agree. It should have been 8.27. Honestly, I thought it would be lower because I presented a lot of information, and a lot of the information I presented was covered in the book. I didn't have to give it to them in class. So not only did I burn precious time where they could have been doing more in class, but I also created redundancy. I took away the opportunity for them to explore more in the book, to learn what else I could have covered, how deep it actually goes. In a basic instructor course, I don't have to go that deep. I can cover the basic minimum standard stuff that TCOLE requires, but I can raise the standard to a higher standard, but I raised it too high. So instead of giving them a course where there was a 20% improvement on the minimum standard, I might have been at like a 60 or 70, which was too much too soon for someone who's learning how to be a basic general instructor. Out of the 11 who completed the course, 5 provided actual written statements as well. So I'm going to read those. I'm going to address them each. At the beginning of the class, I was afraid of the unknown and overload of work. By the end of class, I felt a little better and a better understanding on how to improve my teachings. I definitely recommend this course to all instructors and believe that the past classes need to take this specific one. Tough, but good. Now, I really respect that because I know that it was stretching the brain. I know that it was a difficult course. And I'm grateful that this person saw the value and recognized that it's a tough course. Not all courses should be easy. There's research that shows that the harder a course is, to a point, beyond the meets expectations, the more people learn. I have to challenge them in class because I'm not going to be able to be there with them while they're creating all these courses. It did create a lot of fear when I first talked about it. When they first came in, they saw a textbook and they saw a participant guide next to the textbook. It looked like a lot of material. It was overwhelming. Most people who go through law enforcement instructor or go through any law enforcement training do not expect a 400-page textbook to be sitting at their desk when they walk in and sit down. The next comment I got, this course was very challenging, but overall best class I have taken in my years in law enforcement. I would only recommend this class to officers I believe would be able to complete this class. I think that's a very valid comment. Now, one of the things that I have to be more cognizant on, and I'm not dumbing things down, I'm reducing the cognitive load by providing just enough information to raise the standard without going too deep into the history, going too deep into the why this way. You need to provide the why this for everything, but there was a limit to what I needed to provide, and I did overload the class too much. I totally admit that. Part of the problem was how I structured the material. I had a participant guide and I had a book. I had put all the TCOLE information into the participant guide, or the lesson plan as some people would see it. But then I had the textbook, Creating Training for Law Enforcement, as a companion for all the stuff that wasn't in the TCOLE material that I wanted to raise the standard to. However, by doing that, by having a participant guide and a textbook that acted as additional participant guide, I confused things. I made it harder for people to follow through. So the next iteration of the course is going to be very different. I'm going to find a different way of separating the material so that what we cover in the book is more timely, so they're not bouncing back between participant guide and a textbook. This next comment I'm grateful for. The class blew me away. Totally unexpected to be able to write curriculum content for training. The timing for this is impeccable. Now I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful that they found value in it, and that means a lot to me. I know in having conversations with this person that it was tough, it was rough on them, but they were enjoying the challenge. Some of the participants didn't enjoy the challenge so much, and that's understandable. I did create a course that was a little more difficult than it needed to be. I should have been better prepared, but I'm not going to leave my people hanging, and I'm going to work my butt off to make sure that they get the best possible course. Now, as an instructor, we do that. We have to be able to adapt, we have to be able to move forward, and we have to be able to accomplish our mission and accomplish our performance objectives in order to make sure that people who leave our class are as capable as possible with the knowledge and skills that we give them. This next comment is a very good comment because it gets right to the heart of what I knew was an issue and the participants knew it. Had some times where there was too much information at one time. It was a bit overwhelming. I feel as if I will use this in positive ways within my company. Now, I totally agree with her. I knew that she was struggling with it. We worked together quite a bit, but that's also one of the things I made very clear at the beginning is that I knew there was problems. When I talk about making a safe place to fail, I'm talking about making a safe place. All the participants felt like they could voice their concerns. All the participants felt like they could tell me the problems, the struggles they were having, and if they didn't agree with what we were doing. There was one point in the class, I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday, the whole week I was practically sleep deprived from working on the course the night before and then teaching all day the next day, where one of the participants was visibly upset and stressed because he was trying to build an entire course for his agency. Now, one of the things I don't do is I don't have people develop a 15-minute course. You can't get credit for a 15-minute course, and I want it to be something that people can take back to their agency and continue working on. I'm just giving them the first steps. I'm giving them the first taste of actually building a course. So the assignment is you're going to work on something you can take back to your agency, and you only need to present 15 minutes of that part. Now, at some point in the week, there was a misunderstanding where they felt like they had to have the entire course that they were working on designed and completed by the end of the class. And that's not what I wanted at all. I wanted them to develop a course, start planning a course, regardless of how long it was going to be, but just prepare the first 15 minutes to half an hour so that they would have something to present. The courses all met TCOLE standards of having activity, having assessment, and having a lesson plan or instructor guide. I call them instructor guides. But the class had misunderstood what I had said. So once that misunderstanding was made, I thanked them for being confident and courageous enough to push back on the instructor. I'm not the guru on the hill. I'm not the god of the classroom, and I'm not a drill instructor. We're here to improve the quality and lives of people's instruction and thereby improve the quality of our citizenry and our law enforcement brothers and sisters. So I want to make sure that this isn't a kumbaya moment. It's a safe place where they felt the confidence and they felt the respect and the trust that they could speak their minds and not be retaliated against, not be shamed. I listened, I talked to them, we worked it out. Once they understood what the assignment was, there was a collective sigh of relief, and they all moved forward happily. It was still a tough course. But like I said, at the end of that conversation, I thanked them for demonstrating the respect for me that they felt confident and safe enough to express this. I've been in way too many classes where the people were afraid to say anything and they just kept their mouths shut. And at the end of the class, everyone dumps on it and they don't understand why. Why didn't people say anything? The instructors who don't get feedback from people until after the class didn't treat their people like adults, didn't treat them as professionals. We claim that law enforcement is a profession. We need to treat each other as professionals, not as children, not as recruits in basic training. They're professionals, they need to be respected, and they need to be allowed to have a voice, to the point where on day one, when we talked about breaks, I let them choose when we go to lunch and how long lunch is. I tell them you're going to be in class for a full 8 hours to get a full 7.5 hours worth of training, but when do you want to go to lunch? How long do you want your lunch to be? Because if you make it half an hour, we leave half an hour earlier to miss traffic. Now, we couldn't start it sooner because the place didn't open until 8 o'clock. But I also don't set breaks. I give people breaks as they need it, as I read the class. I don't have set, you get a break every 2 hours. They do get structured breaks like that, but there are times, especially with the depth and the complexity of this content, where I saw them feeling overwhelmed, I saw them starting to act antsy, and they just needed to walk away for about 5-10 minutes. We can do these things. We can provide those people the respect and the professionalism that they've earned. So this is the last comment, and it's a longer one. This course was very challenging. It could be from some of us being out of school for a while. The material seemed more of an advanced course and did mentally wear out students by day 3. But looking back and reviewing handout packets and the book, the material is what it should be. I believe it may have just been the order or way it was presented, hence my rating for some of the above survey questions. It felt like sections of the student packets did not always align up with discussions, and sometimes I would feel lost as if I was not paying attention. The instructor is very knowledgeable and cleared up any confusion when it was brought to his attention. The book will definitely be beneficial in future use. One recommendation is creating a TCOLE requirement checklist at the beginning for students to know what is expected. Second, maybe warm-up presentations on day 2 and not the day before a final presentation. I feel this could get the jitters out early and cover that section of the learning material. That was very comprehensive and very detailed feedback. And I want to say that even before I got this comment, all those changes that he's talking about, I'm already making. First day, there's going to be presentations because I'm going to put a lot of the material online to be done prior to class. It's a way of taking the stuff, rather than having people just sit in a classroom and listen to you drone on for 100 slides for 2 to 3 hours, which is what the basic introduction started out as. I'm going to put a lot of that material online that they can take a written or a multiple choice question test while they're online. And then when they come in, the first thing they're going to do is present the materials that they create. This will provide opportunity for them to get the jitters out, be able to have some experience with the material, and from there we will start with raising the standard. Everything he said about going back and forth between the participant guide and the book wasn't lining up with discussions. They all did, but I absolutely agree. It felt like it was disjointed because they were bouncing between a participant guide and a book. Things like the list, the list he talked about, or the TCOLE requirement checklist. Absolutely. Not only that, but at the beginning of the course, I'm going to give them rubrics on how I'm going to evaluate their training materials and how I'm going to evaluate their presentation. This way, they know what they're going to get. Why do we not teach to the test? The test is what they have to have in order to get certification. It's what they should be able to do once they get out into the real world. So yes, I teach to the test. And not only that, I'm going to give them the rubrics so they know the standards by which they're going to be measured. I don't give them any answers to multiple choice questions because in my courses, I rarely ever have a multiple choice question test. All my measurements, all my assessments are either essay or actually building something that requires a rubric. So while this is very constructive criticism, I totally agree. These changes were already decided upon by Friday night. The next course is going to be much better. And it's going to be validation 1. Even though this course that I just completed was a validation 1, I'm making substantive changes to the course that requires the beginning of a validation again. I do 3 validations, the first time for content and timing. As far as timing, the course was pretty close to what I expected because of how I structure and measure my course delivery. As far as content, the content needed to be fixed. Content needed to be reduced in complexity, not dumbed down. I hate using that term dumbed down because it implies that participants are stupid and we need to make things more stupid for them. That's total BS. If it's over their head if it's wearing them out, if it's stressing them out, if it seems too complex. It's us as an instructor that needs to reduce the complexity and make it more attainable for the participant. It's not the participant's fault if they get bad content, if they get bad instruction, and if they're not able to complete what they need to do. So I'm going to post the comments and the full line of ratings I received from the TTPOA survey and for public review, because I'm doing it for others. I'm going to do it for myself as well. And hopefully going through this process has helped you as an instructor see what you can accomplish and also understand what vulnerability and humility means. I don't like calling myself a humble person. I don't think I am. I don't know if I am. I don't worry about it. But if people think you're humble because you're willing to admit that you're making mistakes, if you're willing to admit that you don't know everything, if you're willing to admit that this course is the best I've done, but there may be problems with it because it's a brand new course, people see that as humility. I see it as just being truthful. I see it as just being factual. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it on Instagram or on my YouTube channel, and I'd be happy to respond to them. Thank you for your time.